and hello everyone, and welcome to our online information session. My name's Alex Jones. I'm one of the recruitment managers here at the business school. I've worked here now for about 8 years. Originally used to work on the organizational side of the MBA program, on the Executive MBA, and then about 5 or 6 years ago I moved over into recruitment. Really, I'm going to assume you've possibly already had the opportunity to maybe look at our website before. Maybe you've downloaded a brochure. And what I really want to do is provide you with some additional information about our MBA programs and about the business school that you can't already find online. The presentation will last roughly about 20-25 minutes, and then there'll be some opportunity for some Q&A. So there's a Q&A function specifically in Zoom, so please do ask questions on there as we go through. I'm not going to address them mid-presentation, but as Dheeraj mentioned, at the end, myself and my colleague Hannah, who is one of the other recruitment managers here, will be able to take the questions at that point. So please do ask them as we go along. Just as an initial introduction, I'll just give you an overview of the programs that we have here, or the MBA programs more specifically. So we have 5 MBA programs in total. We have a campus here in London and also a campus in Dubai, plus we also now have a online distance learning program as well. So we have the full-time MBA. It's 12 months in length, starts in September each year. 2 versions of our Executive MBA in London. So an evening version, so that's taught every Tuesday and Thursday evening. It's 2 years in length, taught part-time. That is predominantly for people who are going to be living and working near to London. It's a regular weekly commitment on that one. The modular Executive MBA is a March intake, 2 years in length as well, part-time. But modular denotes that it is taught over 1 long weekend per month. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and a Monday. So this allows people both in London, outside of London, and outside of the UK to still come and have face-to-face teaching at the business school. We had the Global MBA as well. So this was launched back in February. So we've had 2 intakes already. It's one of our fastest growing programs, as you maybe might expect. And this requires some face-to-face contact, and those face-to-face elements are carried out in our London campus predominantly. We also had the campus in Dubai, so that was opened up in 2007 in the IFC, the Dubai International Financial Centre, and that follows the same format as the modular, so a long weekend each month. That actually is normally a September start, but that was actually the only program that we changed and moved to a January intake instead because of the current pandemic. So your motivations for undertaking an MBA will be very personal and individual to you. But what I find from my experience working in the industry and working at the business school is they typically fit into 3 kind of main areas. Career progression. So some of you are looking to break through to that next part of your career. Perhaps you have reached a point where you feel like you can't break through to the next level. You'll start to see job adverts actually where they're specifically asking for an MBA in order to apply, or that it's certainly expected. And the MBA helps people break through to that next level. But others of you, it's about maybe making a more significant change. So completely changing your industry, completely changing your role, or completely changing your location, or it could be a combination of 2 or 3 of those things. But others of you, I mean, it's you wanting to be your own boss, wanting to create your own company. Sometimes people have already started a company, it's not worked, so they realize they need to kind of do an MBA in order to improve. For a lot of others, it's kind of medium to long-term goal that they kind of one day would like to see that they had their own business. It could be that you're sat listening to this thinking, well, I'm not quite sure which one of these fit, or maybe a few of these might fit, and that's fine. We very much see the programs as an opportunity to gain an understanding, to use it as an opportunity to explore, to really look at your next steps, provide you with the skills and the tools and the network in order to help you with that process. And I from my experience, speaking to a lot of our alumni, actually, it's quite interesting to see that people often came in with one idea and then ended up doing something different anyway, because you're going to be influenced by different people you meet in your cohort, and also who teach you, and also there's going to be a whole new network that you're going to be tapping into as well. Okay. So I've just seen a question has come up to say, are we going to cover the MSc programs? Unfortunately, I'm not going to be doing the MSc programs. This is an MBA specific event. So unfortunately, that's not an area that we will cover, but we do have a range of MSc programs with about 30 different MSc programs. And you can find more information on that online. So how will we help you get there? Well, there's a number of different ways in which we will be able to do that. And I'll spend the next few slides talking through those. Also, just going to apologise. I don't know if this is picking up on the microphone. There's a fair amount of noise going on next door with some home improvements for my neighbours. So one of the joys of working from home. So apologies if you're picking up on any of that noise in the background. So I think, first of all, I think the foundations on which everything is built is academic excellence and the faculty that we have here. So we've got about 200 members of permanent faculty at the business school. Those faculty include leading academics, they include policymakers and entrepreneurs. So this means they are world-class practitioners with real industry experience. So they can then bring that knowledge and that experience back into the classroom to make sure things are not just theoretical, but also touch upon real world and current business scenarios as well. I'd say the kind of traditional key strength of the business school is finance. So we were set up about 50 years ago, and bearing in mind our location in the square mile city of London, finance is a big part of the school, and that remains to be the case. However, it's no longer just all that we're about, and we excel in a lot of other areas as well. One in particular, corporate strategy. So in the Financial Times did a ranking MBA programs in that subject area, and we were ranked second globally, and second just to Harvard. Entrepreneurship, again, this has been a kind of big growth area for the school, and again, the ranking that came out about a week or two ago, Poets and Quants did the rankings, and we were ranked number one in the UK for MBA programs in entrepreneurship. So you can see that these are kind of key strengths of the school, and it's not just that kind of one area that we focus on, and that's changed over quite a few years now. And I think part of the reason for our success and strength in those areas does lie around our location. As I said, we're right in the square mile city of London, one of the global financial capitals in the world. And when I say we're there, it's literally on your doorstep. We also have the main tech city area as well. So this is the kind of a creative startup digital hub of the whole of the UK, and it's right on our doorstep. Again, you turn right, you're in the main city of London. You turn left, you're in the tech city. Now, location is incredibly important because the logistics of being able to network and have the kind of businesses that you want to work for, that you want to carry out projects within, the kind of people you want to meet, having them literally on your doorstep makes a big difference when it comes to that. If you want more of a greenfield campus site, out in the countryside, albeit looking very nice, you're not going to have that same level of access. It also means that we're surrounded by our alumni as well, and there are many thousands upon thousands of them that are based in London. This means, again, connecting with them is good. When we have events on campus, which we frequently do, it means they can be well attended by our alumni as well. Now, those 100, 200 people who have finished their work and walked around the corner to see the same guest speaker that you have will be exactly the kind of people that you'll be wanting to meet and to network with. But it's not just about connections in London, it's global connections. You've got a whole wide range that you can connect with that. I mean, the classroom itself will be one of the most diverse kind of environments you'll find yourself in, and I'll talk through those profiles in a little bit more detail. We have 9 different international electives that you can choose from. These are great ways of meeting businesses and connecting with people. And again, I'll discuss those locations shortly. But pretty much 50,000 alumni now worldwide, spread over about 160 different countries. We've got the campuses in both London and Dubai, and also there's a wide range of different clubs and societies, and that is a real kind of avenue for you to make a lot of those connections. So this is the profile of the full-time MBA students who just finished quite recently. There's 87 students in the class, 30 different nationalities. So that gives you some kind of indication of the kind of diversity in the classroom. It's quite a mature full-time MBA relatively to some other programs, certainly if you compare it to some programs in the US. Average age of 30 with about 7 years post-grad work experience. Average GMAT is pretty much the same each year, around 640, 650. Male to female balance that year was about 65-35. The students that have just started, it's more 60-40. And that is something we are kind of slowly but steadily working towards achieving the 50-50 balance that we is our objective. And actually on some of our executive programs, we have successfully created that balance. The modular Executive MBA is one of our executive programs. You can see there the gender balance was much improved, but as I said, on a few occasions we have achieved 50-50. It's a small intake. The executive programs tend to be a little bit smaller in the numbers, but kind of around 30-40 students typically. That bit more experienced. So average age of 36, 13-14 years post-grad work experience. Still very diverse, typically with kind of 20 odd nationalities in the program. And with the modular version, of course, you will get the opportunity to travel in as well. So you've got maybe 25-30% of the class will be coming from outside of the UK and just commuting in, especially for the classes. So which of these programs is going to be right for you? Well, this slide is a pretty simplistic way of kind of dividing them. Early to mid-career tends to be full-time MBA, mid-career to senior management, one of the part-time executive programs. There's more to it than that. I would say the motivations between people carrying out the programs varies quite a lot. So if you're thinking back to the kind of earlier slide about reasons for doing it, I'd say the career progression tends to be more the part-time programs. Those looking to make a bigger transition in their career tend to be more looking at the full-time MBA program. Certainly the age difference, you'll notice that, so the level of experience in the classroom. But, you know, if you don't quite fit the mold of what I'm describing, that doesn't necessarily rule you out. There's always exceptions and crossover between these programs, but that's generally what we see. Program structure pretty much remains the same across all our programs. There are some slight nuance differences, and I'd say the one that probably has the biggest difference is the global MBA. So if you kind of want to drill down into some or more of that detail, there is quite a lot of good information on the website just to kind of break it down a bit further. But basically, first half of the MBA, fundamentals of business, that is achieved mostly through the core modules, and also there are some different practical projects, there's International Consultancy Week and so forth. The second half of the MBA will be based around tailor-making your own program. So there you've got the flexibility of choosing your electives and also the final business mastery project. Both of those will be used to then really put your own kind of personalized focus on the MBA itself. Out of those electives, the international electives as well, there's also running throughout this a lot of professional development and careers support as well. Now, the careers team are going to meet with you very early on. They're going to sit with you, they're going to talk with you to find out, you know, exactly what your goals are here, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses, what is it that you are looking to achieve, and then put together the best plan and strategy for that. And that is made up with, you know, having a dedicated contact in the careers team. It is events that the careers team organize, different bits of corporate engagement, but also a lot of soft skill development as well. So there's a whole range, a whole kind of separate timetable based around that, where you'll be doing classes such as how to network effectively, how to resolve conflict at work, how to negotiate successfully, advanced presentation skills. there's a very, very broad range there. And I think developing those soft skills throughout the MBA is quite key in the jobs market afterwards as well. So I've talked a little bit about the international electives and also International Consultancy Week. You'll see some of those locations there. The international electives, so these are not exchange programs. You're not just going to one of these countries to visit a different school and sit in a different classroom. You're going there to visit companies, do site visits, get behind the scenes, meet key influencers, key alumni we have in those regions, and really learn from those people and get a very kind of different, outside of the classroom experience. And typically, when we speak to our alumni, they reflect upon this, and the international electives are often, one of their highlights of the program. You see, London is on there. It's because that has the same kind of format. So we have something called the London Symposium. That is a week-long elective where you, again, will visit lots of companies and organizations throughout London. So these are great networking opportunities. And like I said, to get a kind of different learning experience and based around normally a theme or a different subject area as well. There's also a few locations on there which are consultancy weeks. So those are Portugal, Colombia, and Vietnam. Depends which program you do. I would just mention that it was the exception of the Global MBA, so you don't do that on that, but on the face-to-face programs you do. The consultancy week is positioned pretty much the halfway stage of your MBA. So you're equipped with all your core knowledge at that point. What we do is we fly the cohort to a different country. You will get the opportunity to go into a company that are going to give you a real problem and look to you and your team for real solutions. And this will allow you to then really put that knowledge into practice, take you outside of your comfort zone, learn about a different country and economy and how business is done, and also provide genuine solutions to this company's problem. And I think the nice thing about that, being at the halfway stage, it kind of gives you that, halfway point where you can reflect upon how much you've learned and how far you've developed so far. And I think that kind of leads into this next slide, really. It's about that overall experience. It is those kind of less tangible things, maybe, of the things that you're going to get out of this. You're certainly going to have a very strong bond with your cohort. It's a big part of how you're going to be learning. And there's a real focus on that collaborative spirit throughout all our programs. It's incredibly international and diverse. London itself is probably one of the most diverse cities I've ever spent time in. And that is reflected in the program as well. And we draw, maybe 80% of our full-time classes coming from outside of the UK. There's a great range of different competitions and events that you can take part in. These are great ways of boosting your CV and also expanding your network. And generally, there's a good buzz to the place. Even now, actually, I'm pleased to say that, obviously the pandemic has affected things, but we've started the full-time MBA and our executive programs, and they have started with face-to-face teaching. There's still, I think there's going to be blended elements. There's going to be some elements that maybe were normally face-to-face that will go online. But our full-time MBA, for example, first 3 weeks of induction was carried out online. And after that, it was face-to-face teaching. So the campus certainly looks a little bit different to how it does normally. But for those of you looking, for maybe the next intake or before, then I'd hope we'd be more back to the kind of the normal that we're all used to. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit more kind of on the admissions point of view. It's probably going to be 5-6 minutes left of the presentation. So have a think about other questions that you have, and please start posting those. And I'll be happy to answer those for you. And like I said, my colleague Hannah is going to join as well. So what are we generally looking for? Well, I think across all our MBA programs, the application really is designed for us to understand how you're going to be able to contribute on the program itself. As I mentioned, a big part of how you're going to be learning is from each other. MBA education is very, very different to that of undergrad, and also on some of the specialized MSc programs as well, because as well as learning from the academic and the expert at the front of the room, you're surrounded by other experts with all different range of knowledge and experiences as well. So we want to ensure that you are going to be able to contribute within that environment and be an important member of the cohort as well. So the application allows us to do that. There's essays, of course your CV, There would be an interview as well. Academic ability, this is important. We need to make sure you're going to be up for the academic rigor of the program too. So generally looking at an undergraduate degree of equivalent to a 2-1 or above. We also will look for GMAT, but just on our full-time MBA program, because we will accept less work experience on the full-time MBA program. We ask for the GMAT as well. On other programs, we ask for more experience, so we feel that we can waive it in those instances. As I said, your journey from A to B may change, and you may have some ideas now, and they could be influenced by what you learn. I hope that they are, and I'm sure that they will be. But the shared kind of drive to be motivated and succeed and be committed is something we certainly want to see across all our candidates. And team skills, as I mentioned on there, leadership skills, team skills, these are two things that certainly you're going to want you to demonstrate through your application and then whilst you're on the program. I think it's important to know when to lead, but also when to follow as well. So these are the different application dates and the fees. So there are a wide range of deadlines coming up. You can see them on your screen. Some of them are coming up quite soon. Others are taking place in a few weeks. And we normally have those, separated kind of roughly every 6 weeks. The fees vary from 30,000 on the global program, 46 on the full-time, and up to 51 on the executive programs. There's a wide range of different scholarships and awards available. The maximum we typically have is 50% of the fees. Generally, a relatively small number of those are awarded. They are very, very competitive. And there's a wider range, kind of ranging from 10, sometimes up to 30% as well. Now, it varies across the program. There's lots of different categories. So if that is something that you're interested in, then again, I would look kind of program specific on the website. There's different loan companies available. There'll be some names out there that you will be familiar with. And also, if you're looking at part-time study, then a lot of people turn to their employer as well. We can help you with that because we've put together a really good document that helps you to build a business case. And that's what you need to do. If you're going to your employer, you need to put forward a business case over why that they would sponsor you. So if you are going to do that and you'd like that document, please get in touch and we'll be happy to share it. So what is next? Well, if you haven't done so already, I would highly recommend that you submit your CV. We'll be able to give you feedback on that, and then also look to perhaps set up a consultation with myself or one of the other team members as a next step. And that allows us then to talk through things on a more individual, personalized basis. There's different opportunities for student and alumni contact. Class visits currently are kind of out, unfortunately, because of the current situation, but hopefully they will come back again soon. And if you do want to get a taste for the teaching style, we actually have got a masterclass coming up, not this Saturday, but next Saturday, which I think is the 14th. So that is from one of our permanent members of faculty, and it gives you a great opportunity to get a taste for the teaching style. So if you're interested in that, just register on our website and you'll be able to join us in a week and a half's time. And of course, if you want to be considered for the program, you need to apply. That's all done online. And I'd say on average, the process from applying to completing the full process, roughly about 4 to 6 weeks. But if you submit a fully completed application with all documents, all references, absolutely everything sorted, then there's a good chance it could be a little bit quicker than that. You don't have to go through every single one of these steps in order to apply. They're just different recommended touch points and things that we think would be useful. You'll see on our screen as well, cas-mba@city.ac.uk. That's generally the best email address to start off with any kind of questions or queries, or if you want to send through your CV, you can also submit your CV through our online portal on the website as well. That pretty much concludes the presentation. So Hannah's great, it's joining me. I can see her camera's on. Yeah, hi Hannah. So Hannah is going to join me. Hannah, do you want to just introduce yourself quickly?
Sure, yeah. So my name's Hannah and I look after the Executive MBA program. So that's the modular and the evening sessions. What we'll do probably, Alex, is go to the questions. There's a couple come through on the chat and a couple on the Q&A. So the first one we have comes from Megan, and she's asking, do students usually do one of the international electives, or is it possible to do two?
Yeah, so it is possible. Yeah, so it is possible to do more than one. So basically what happens is when it comes to electives, you have a certain amount of credits to use, and it varies a little bit from program to program, but it's roughly between kind of 55 to 65 credits. And electives are valued at either 5 or 10 credits. So without drilling into too much detail about that, you would be using your credit allocation to then choose those electives. And the international ones, for example, are worth 10 credits. So I'd say most people do one. Some people do two. I'd say in rare exceptions, people are maybe doing 3. There is some additional cost involved in those. So there is, the first one is subsidized, but there's also, flights to pay for. And if you do more than one, there's kind of a package price as well. So yeah, there is the possibility to do more than one, but I'd say on average 1 or 2 is kind of the amount that people do. And also there's so many other great electives that people want to do. Obviously, it's kind of balancing between those things.
Great, thanks, Alex. So our next question is around IELTS. So what the minimum IELTS score is. So that is 7 overall, with a minimum of 6.5 in each area. So it can't be any less than that. That's the minimum requirement. I know there may be a mention of a slightly lower score on the generic university page, but that does also, look at things like the MSCs. But for the MBAs, it is a 7 with no less than 6.5.
Yeah, okay. That's great. Thanks, Anna.
No worries. Then the next question we have is around loans. So are the loans you mentioned, Alex, available to international students as well?
So there are, yeah, I think it's a mixture really. I think if you're looking at kind of local UK banks, then probably not. Although you might have some international banks that like Santander that will lend to students here and students in Spain, for example. But generally, yeah, local banks, no. But companies such as Prodigy Finance, Future Finance, yes, then they actually Future Finance, I'm not 100% certain, but Prodigy Finance certainly lends to international students as well. So yeah, there are some providers that do that, and it's best to kind of explore those options in good time, because if you get an offer place on the program, you'll have 3 weeks to make a decision and a deposit to pay as well. So it's good to kind of do that research and get that kind of your funding lined up beforehand.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Alex. And another question is around GMAT scores. So can you apply with an old GMAT score?
I suppose it depends how old it is. Potentially, yeah. I think the limit, basically, if it's still valid, you can still apply with it. And typically that was about 5-year period where it was still valid. I've got a feeling that may have extended, but obviously if it's much older than 5 years anyway, then we might question whether we can really use that anyway. So I would generally go with a kind of 5-year cutoff point on a GMAT score. So yeah, you don't necessarily have to redo it if it's within that kind of time frame. And yeah, generally minimum score of around 600 and upwards.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Alex. And next question is around, how can I decide between the full-time MBA, if that is more suitable for me, or the global MBA?
Yeah, well, I think there's a few different decisions you've got to think about there. I mean, well, the full-time MBA is a 1-year program, and you're going to have to give up your job. So that is probably one of the first things you've got to be considering if you are in a position to do that. Because for some people that's not going to be viable. If it is, then there's a lot of benefits to that. Obviously, you will be fully dedicating yourself and fully immersing yourself in that MBA without any distractions of your work. I think, as I mentioned earlier, if you're looking to make a really big change in your career, then I think the full-time MBA is a perfect platform for doing that. So I suppose you've got to think about your own personal situation and also your goals here. If you feel that you can't give up your job, then the global MBA is a great option because you can keep on working. The global MBA will give you a certain degree. It's not completely flexible. You can't just kind of, there is a pace you've got to be keeping to, but it provides, greater flexibility than having to switch location and, come in every day. but of course, you're not going to have the same level of face-to-face teaching. There's some face-to-face elements, but it's a global online MBA. Now, there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer to that. It depends, again, on your own personal motivations. For some people, they're very dedicated to the benefits that face-to-face teaching brings. For others, they're quite happy doing it online and feel that they'll be able to get the experience that they want. So yeah, I think look at your personal situation, your goals, your motivations, and hopefully it should start to become a bit clearer.
Yeah, great, thank you, Alex. And Kim's asking a question around what are the intentions for teaching online or on campus? Are the plans hybrid for now for all programs? So I'll take that one if you don't mind, Alex.
Yeah, sure.
So generally, we do have teaching face-to-face on campus. That's for the full-time program and for the evening Executive MBA, which both started in September. We're following government guidelines. So far, university campuses are allowed to operate as long as they're socially distanced and everything is in place to protect students and staff. However, we do also have online sessions running at the same time as the face-to-face, mainly for students who aren't yet able to attend in person. They may be shielding or not able to travel. And for that reason, we do have the online capacity as well. If that does change, we'll update you and inform you straight away. However, at the moment, there is kind of both, and that hybrid learning is in force for all programs. Anything you'd like to add on that, Alex?
No, I think I think you've covered it really. As Hannah said, we will stick to the government guidelines, and health and safety is always going to be paramount. But actually, we're in a fortunate position where the government guidelines, even though things are tightening up in a lot of ways, are still allowing face-to-face teaching on the programs that we're running. So, but yes, there's hybrid is probably going to be the way that things do look at times.
Yeah. Great. We have quite an interesting question coming from Nihal, who's asking around experience years. So Nihal has 8 years experience and says, does that put them at an advantage or disadvantage around admission for the full-time MBA, since it's for early to mid-career professionals?
Well, I suppose it kind of depends what you've been doing in those 8 years, really. I suppose if it's 8 years with no career progression in a role that isn't necessarily relevant to an MBA, then that's not necessarily going to put you an advantage to someone with less experience, but maybe in a more senior position with more relevant experience. However, let's presume that's not the case, and then yeah, potentially it does. I think generally, having more work experience is seen as a positive, kind of within reason, and that's why on average our students have about 7 years post-grad work experience. I think we think it's important for students to have a good level of experience. So yeah, 8 years, if that's relevant, good experience, then yeah, that is going to be an advantage. I was talking about contribution earlier. I think if you've got a great level of experience, that should allow you to contribute more. So yeah, I think that's generally a positive.
Excellent. And another question is, how important is it regarding your GMAT result for consideration? Is that something we put a lot of emphasis and weighting on, or not?
Yeah, so it's only on the full-time program that you would need to do that. But yeah, there is quite a bit of weighting put on it. I'd say, your work experience, your GMAT, your interview, I'd say they're probably the 3 main kind of pillars of kind of assessment with the most weighting. There's a lot of other bits as well, but they're 3 of the kind of main bits. So yeah, the time you invest in GMAT will definitely be time well spent. And it's also a consideration when it comes to things like scholarships, financial awards, very competitive. So anything you can do to give yourself the edge or make yourself stronger is going to help. And GMAT is something that you can invest time in, which should hopefully result in a higher score.
Yeah, and that leads quite nicely into the next question around what makes a standout application specifically for a scholarship or an award. I think leading on from what Alex said, definitely if it's for the full-time, a good GMAT score is definitely a requirement. Good career trajectory, so where you're at, what you've done in those years, any additional certifications or qualifications you might have alongside your degree also would be considered. And making sure that you really articulate that, take time to write the personal statement for the scholarship as well, and performing well at your interview. So you'll have an academic interview where you can articulate, your career plans and also your leadership style or your motivations for taking the program. And all of that's considered very holistically when we look at you for scholarships and awards. Yeah,
definitely. And if there's one area that you're perhaps a little bit weaker in, then that can be made up for in another area. And yes, scholarships and awards it's a merit-based system. So yeah, it will be the same things that, yeah, we are assessing you for acceptance onto the program are the same kind of areas that are going to be looked at when it comes to making decisions on those as well.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I think that's the majority of the questions we've answered. If there are any more, I think we'll take a couple more minutes to take some more. If you do have any, please do post them in the Q&A section.
Yeah, one thing I'm happy to talk, maybe whilst we're just waiting for that, Hannah, there was, when I went through the slides, I didn't go into much detail about the final project, so I can maybe talk about that a little bit more if you want, and if any more questions come in, then we can take them. Yeah, I think it's just an important point to make, which I perhaps just didn't spend enough time on earlier, is the final project that you will do as part of your MBA. So this is something that you will do across all our programs. It's about 25% of your whole MBA, and this is really your kind of main point of, kind of individual bit of assessment, and will allow you can use it really as that kind of stepping stone in the next stage of your career. So I think whatever your goal is, this is going to be quite a key way to succeeding with it. If you're looking for career progression, certainly if you're studying on a part-time basis, then doing it within your own business is probably the most sensible choice there, and it can help you kind of demonstrate that you're ready to break through to that next stage, or you can investigate a certain change in strategy or approach in a business and then follow that into fruition afterwards. For those of you looking to make a career switch, often, like I said, that's on the full-time MBA program. So you could look to take it on as a kind of hands-on research project within a business. We will have projects come to us through the careers team that you could look to take on. For those of you looking to start your own business, then you could create your own business plan from that. And I know a lot of students that have done that and launched their MBAs straight off the back of that. A really great example of that, and I must say this wasn't on our MBA, but on our MSc that do have a similar project in some of them, is Stelios, who created EasyJet Empire. He actually used his final project to create that business proposition, from scratch. And obviously that's gone on to many great things, but it's just a kind of well-known example of how people use that final project to really launch things. So yeah, I think that is something just worth talking about in a little bit more detail, because it's such an important part, I think, whatever kind of career transition you're looking for.
Definitely. Thank you, Alex. I think we have another question that's come through on the chat.
Okay.
Around the full-time MBA cohort. So what sorts of students do we usually have generally? What sort of backgrounds do they come from? Potentially what industries they're coming in from? And is there any opportunity to potentially reach out to that full-time cohort? Yeah,
so the wide range of industries that they come from is it's pretty broad, really. I'd say that the largest each year is finance, but it's probably about 20-25%. And people often ask, am I just going to be surrounded by people from finance? And quite clearly, that's not the case. I mean, yes, it's the biggest sector, but it means the other kind of 75-80% are from different areas. And that's a pretty broad spread. I mean, you could be looking at people from more of a tech background, engineering, healthcare, law, education, the arts, media as well. I think more so maybe than other schools, we are open to kind of different, maybe non-traditional profiles. So you may find that there possibly could be a few more kind of outliers within the class profile that you might see in others. We put together what we call the class directory, which is a kind of profile of all our students each year. You can access them all on our website. So I would recommend taking a look at that to give you some idea of that kind of breakdown. From the point of view of connecting with them, yes, certainly. So we have a feature called Ask a Student. This allows you to connect with the full-time cohort. It's not been launched just yet. It will be in a few weeks' time. If you have applied to the program and submitted a full application, you could also get in touch, and we could, find someone, a current student as well. So there is the possibility to do that anyway. But certainly that Ask the Student function, it should be back up and running again in a few weeks. That's a really good way of doing that.
Thank you, Alex. That's a great answer. We have also another question around the CAS Expeditionary Society. Are they still active and planning activities for the future?
Yeah, I believe that they are. Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, it was something that we'd had in the program this kind of the explorer's mindset. We do a lot of international trips, and people used it then as an opportunity to start going on treks as well, and kind of looking at leadership, and teamwork outside of the classroom. And then the alumni kind of then, carried that on and created the Expeditionary Society, and it seems like a kind of element of one-upmanship, and now they've gone to like the Arctic Circle. I don't know where they go next to top that, but yes, as far as I'm aware, it's something that's still running. Of course, we're in a global pandemic at the moment. I don't expect they're doing a lot of international trips with relation to that, but that's more of a pause for now, and I'm sure that they are still connecting and communicating and planning their next trip.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, I think that's everything. Just double check. One more question around, do you have a cap on the number of people coming from a particular sector or nationality?
So no, we don't have kind of quotas or caps. I mean, what we want is diversity and balance in the classroom. So we're always going to ensure that is the case. But there aren't specific kind of caps in relation to that.
Just following on from what Alex said, I think we definitely don't want to have an overpopulation of one nationality. We want to be balanced, we want to be as diverse as possible, and also sector wise, like Alex mentioned slightly briefly kind of earlier on, around not just finance industry professionals. We're wanting a real diversity across engineering, manufacturing, media, technologies. We want a real mixed class, so as diverse as possible, I think, is the message there, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Perfect. Okay, that looks like everything in terms of questions wise. Okay, so I think, that's everything, guys. I think we'll
Good.
Guys, I think we'll
Good.